Fortunate Age is about a group of friends who moved to New York around 1988 during the tech boom and try to live rather bohemian lives and a family. This is a piece about one of them. It tracks back and forth between all of them. For a year now, Emily Kaplan and Curtis Lang had been having an affair. Of course, it wasn't actually an affair per se, since Curtis and his legal wife, Amy, had been separated for more than a year. But Emily, who liked to make everything a big joke, had taken to calling herself the other woman, and lately, Mrs. Robinson. Amy, apparently, had made some derogatory comment about Emily's age when Curtis mentioned that he was seeing someone new. And Curtis repeated this comment to Emily, unwisely, her friends thought, as evidence of Amy's hypocrisy. She considered herself such a radical, and yet she wasn't above common pettiness. "She's ridiculous," he said, smiling with just his upper lip. "If she's so ridiculous," Emily thought sourly, "then why haven't you divorced her yet?" A year earlier, even a few months earlier, such thoughts wouldn't have occurred to her. Things had changed for Emily. When she'd met Curtis, she'd been a working actress with roles back to back for years. On the brink, she was sure, of breaking through into some sort of success. The play she'd made a splash in the previous year at a little theater on East 4th Street was still headed for Broadway, and the director had sworn and continued to swear as the transfer was endlessly delayed that he was taking the original cast with him. "This is as much about you as it is about us," he'd told them. And it was true. The critics had raved about the energetic young cast, and Ben Brantley had singled out Emily herself as an irresistible redhead with a deadly combination of spot-on comic timing and screen siren looks. New York Magazine and The Voice had pictured her in flattering close-up, but none of that mattered in the end. The delays were over at last, the final backers in place, and they decided to recast with box office draws. Emily's role, the second lead, had gone to a well-known sitcom actress, a redhead like Emily of anorexic proportions. It was Labor Day, or the day before, Sunday, to be exact, Sunday. Alone in her increasingly decrepit apartment, Emily folded her laundry. In the bathroom, 5 plain knee-length shifts of her summer work clothes hung damply from plastic hangers slung over the curtain rod. The following day, Dave, another friend, was hosting what he now referred to as his annual barbecue. She met this guy Curtis at the one previous year. The following week, her play, and it was still her play, though she was no longer in it, would start previews. Ads were appearing on buses, the redhead's grinning face popping out of the lower left corner. In a misguided gesture of apology, the director had sent Emily tickets for opening night and invited her, along with the other members of the original cast, to the big party that would follow it at some cheesy Pan-Asian place in Chelsea. For 18 months, believing this role awaited her, she'd gone on hiatus from auditioning, which meant that she hadn't worked, hadn't had a role in over a year, and she was now fucked, truly and completely fucked. Her friends had warned her. "Is it really definite?" Sadie and Lil kept asking, but she had not listened, no, because the truth was, she could see this now all too clearly, the truth was she had been looking for an excuse to stop auditioning. She was tired. For years, she'd run around the city from audition to audition, eternally late, eternally lugging a mammoth backpack stuffed with dance clothes, yoga clothes, book to read while she waited, manila envelope of headshots, protein bars, huge bottles of water, and sacks of cosmetics. For years, she had dieted and fasted, had risen at 5:30 to go to the gym, had spent every lunch hour at yoga or dance or an audition or memorizing lines or reading sides or researching agents or doing something else productive, while the rest of New York milled around her, chatting and laughing and shopping and eating sandwiches made from triple cream brie, and drinking wine and spending the money they made doing who knows what. The promise of this role, her role, had allowed her to live, at last, like a normal person. At lunch, she sat on a bench and watched the tourists lope around Rockefeller Center. Sometimes she met up with her actor friends, still picking carefully at their sad little salads. And their horror stories filled her with incredible relief. She had moved on and up in the world. No longer would she suffer through cattle calls, through the non-union productions of Midsummer set on Mars, through the West Radish Playhouse take on Brigadoon. Her career, she imagined, would play out in the way it often did with indie actresses, the ones who were attractive in a quirky way, too tall or too short, big-nosed or small-eyed, or, like Emily, red-headed. The play would be one of the hits of the season and would lead Emily to some sort of interesting television drama, which would in turn win her a cult following of devoted fans who would tell the uninitiated,
You know, she's really a stage actress. Movie roles would follow, and she'd return to Broadway triumphant in a revival of Burn This, or maybe playing Portia in The Park. In truth, she'd expected some of that stuff to happen after the Times review, after the photo in New York, and so on. And she did get calls from talent managers and agents. She'd signed with one, a young, aggressive-seeming guy who sent her on auditions for commercials, Trident, Ford, Allegra, and suggested she start doing voiceover work. He could recommend a great coach who could help her make a demo tape. But within a few months after the guy's initial rapidity wore off, he stopped sending her out. She wasn't sure why, because she hadn't landed any of the parts, because she didn't want to do voiceovers and certainly didn't want to pay for a coach. Maybe he'd simply taken on another young redhead, younger than Emily, cuter than Emily, thinner than Emily, who might be an easier sell. Or was it just like everything in the theater, inexplicable? Regardless, she hadn't worried about it at the time because she had her play, and soon enough she'd sign on with someone great, someone at XI.m or wherever. But no, Sadie had been right, Lil had been right, everyone had been right, and now it was over and she was fucked. She had nothing. She had never, not ever, in the entirety of her life wanted anything other than the theater, Broadway, the whole sad cliche of it. But still she'd wanted it badly enough to waste her days, her expensive degree, her everything, answering phones for a soulless banker. This play had been her shot, her chance, her break. If she couldn't count on going to Broadway in a play for which she'd won raves, then what could she count on? Nothing. Nothing but Curtis. Curtis, who was eternally baffled by the reams of paperwork he needed to file in order to divorce Amy and, of course, marry Emily, which was similar to nothing. She was a secretary now. Nothing but